All right, here we are. It is it is May, Danielle. So
It is May.
it's Sunday, May 2nd. Here we are again on Dad from a Distance. So right out of the gate, we want to thank you guys for your patience. My daughter, who just gallops across the globe. So some of you guys may remember a couple of shows ago, she was in Miami and in the back of a car. And today, where are you today, Danielle?
I'm in Los Angeles. Well, I'm actually in Beverly Hills, so staying at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Okay, so that's how she's living her life, folks. Just in case you're wondering, that's how she's living her life. So we are excited.
Really pretty. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's not that nice in the room where I am here. Thanks, I appreciate that. If you could just keep it on the stucco wall, that would be very much appreciated. So we are here and we are live again today. This is our 5th episode of Dad from a Distance, our journey. And who would have thought, that I can't remember how long we started this, like 10 weeks ago, I think. Or
something. And it was just like a random thought that we really followed through with, and I feel like in healing through, which is really, really cool too.
Yes. And hopefully having given an opportunity for a lot of people who are watching to do the same. So because we know that there are dads from a distance, we know that there are kids that are I say kids, Danielle is a little older than a kid, but there are children of relationships that are separated. There are folks that are all in the same house that are not connected very close. There are aunts and uncles and grandparents and nieces and cousins. Almost all of us have been connected or been touched by a journey like this, either directly or indirectly. So having the conversation is important. And we are having it again because it's good for us. It's kind of what has made our relationship special. So today's topic is the power of presence. So we've touched on this a little bit, Danielle, in a few of our previous broadcasts, but it just makes sense to give it also its own space because it's through everything. So the power of presence. So when you just read just those words, what comes to mind in terms of our journey together?
I feel like immediately for me, I think about feeling your love from anywhere, or that I had you, like in this respect, like that you were always there. Like whether you're present or like actually there, there's a presence that even if you're in California, I can give you a call. I think in that way. And I think that there's a lot of people that are actually physically there and have no presence at all. So to me, it's like feeling that I'm seen and that I have a place to go. And so like I know friends of mine that haven't had that. So that, I understand presence is like being aware of the love that you have and those loved ones that you have to lean on. So yeah.
So I am so happy that's where you went, because I would not be surprised if people saw the topic of this, the title of this episode, The Power of Presence, and did not go where you just went first. Now,
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
it's also, we need to give some time to, being physically present in
Yes,
different spaces as
absolutely.
well.
Mhm,
But I think the out of the gate, the big takeaway for dads especially
mhm.
is it is feeling your presence, not
Yeah.
necessarily always being able to see you in the same space, the same physical space, but just kind of always kind of feeling like you're in the midst,
Mhm,
or that you're accessible to to your point that you said a couple of minutes ago. Um, so because in that forward, that line that you wrote that tears everybody up, is that's the line. It's like,
mhm,
I can't remember a time where you weren't there. Now, I can remember a time when I wasn't physically there, but
mhm,
in the meantime, all the other
mhm.
things that we try to do to make sure that we are, our presence is felt is important. So, and by the way, I actually have a surprise for Danielle. She doesn't know it because of the camera angle that I have on here, but I actually am wearing something. The last time I wore it was on March 5th, 2010, at a
Mhm.
ASUN tournament at Mercer University, where was your last basketball game at Jacksonville University.
Yes, it
So,
was.
so this is the shirt. I literally have not worn this shirt in 11 years and 2 months almost now.
I can believe
And
that.
and so Danielle has not seen this shirt, but she saw it a lot.
Not so much that I don't even know if I did. I knew that you didn't wear it that long. Like
It,
it was your uniform.
it was my uniform at all the
Mhm,
basketball
mhm.
games, and we'll talk about that. And by the way, just in case anybody thinks that I'm not like seriously a girl dad, that's her number there with
That was
something
also
for.
my number.
Yes, absolutely. This, I think, made her a little embarrassed the first time I showed up, but we worked through it.
We moved
So,
past it. I'm really grateful. I'm
well,
grateful for that kind of support.
well,
I
good.
am.
By the way, I've also not worn those shoes
Mhm.
since March. They wouldn't make as much sense, I don't think, now. If I walked around with them, people are like, "Oh, wow, that's very avant-garde look," but they still fit. Um, but let's talk a little bit about physical presence too, because I think that's
Mhm,
also important. So, if you were talking to dads right now
mhm,
about the
mhm,
importance of the effort that needs to be made, or the importance of making the effort to be physically present as well,
mhm.
what would you tell them?
That's such an interesting question because I don't know. The reason why I don't know is I've never experienced that.
Okay.
I've never felt like I needed to tell my parents to be present, right?
Okay.
Like, so, because I've always felt that. What I can say is from people that I know around me that
Mhm.
have had issues with their parents, it really makes such a big difference. I mean, I've heard some of my friends, um, talk about small moments that, yeah, they didn't come to that one honor roll or whatever that was, and it stuck with them for the rest of their life. Um, so I do know that if what I would say is if your child perceives something as important, I would perceive it as important too, because if they do feel it, even if they're young and it's not, maybe it's, you know, building a train track or whatever, like it could be really that small, but if the child perceives it as being important, I think that that would be important for you to do too, if you know that that's a big deal in their head. It's a big deal to them.
Well, I think what I hear you saying and the way I feel about it too is that there aren't any small moments.
Right.
In
Right.
fact, I think what sometimes can happen is that we can try to rank these moments,
Hmm.
and because we're ranking them, we make decisions based on where they rank. So,
Right. Right.
it's your, I don't know what it could be anything. Your when you got your certificate to be a patrol,
Hmm.
safety patrol in the elementary
Hmm.
school.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to be a safety patrol. You're probably going to get it the next year too. So if I don't
Mhm.
get to this one, I'll get to the next one. But you never know which one is the one that is the most important. And one of the things that I am continuing to learn, because the reason we call this our journey is because it's not finished yet,
Mhm.
is that as parents, or as a dad, me specifically, what I am continuing to learn is that what's important is when you expect me to be there, not when I think I should be there. Even for a phone call, even for something as simple as a phone call. We've laughed about this over time, how we've had different rules about when we connect. There was a period of time when you were in college when the connection rule was, I'll reach out to you, Dad, and I'll call you. And then after you made it through college and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
master's program, then we
Mhm.
changed the rule, really. I mean, the
Right.
rule was, okay, so now we can call each other.
Right.
But uh, the truth is that kids, including my Danielle, grown woman Danielle, wants to talk to me when she wants to talk to me, not when I'm available, or not when it's convenient for me. Um, in fact, there's a bunch of times, and I may get in trouble with this because there's been meetings that I've been on that some people that might actually be looking at this, I might have been on a meeting with them. But there have been times where I'm even on a Zoom meeting and you'll call and I'll text you back immediately that I'm on a meeting. Do I need to get off this meeting? Because if I do, the meeting will wait. There's nothing on fire in any meeting. And that includes a couple of times where I was actually presenting, because uh, Danielle needs to know that she is that kind of priority for me. Now, she knows what I do, and she has always said, nah, I'll get back with you later. But
Mhm.
I'm assuming the fact that I actually reached back out meant something. That was
Yeah.
a big deal. So let's talk about some time. In this, I'm putting you on the spot, and then you can put me
Mhm.
on the spot too.
Yeah, sure.
Some moments that you thought were like, man, I was glad he was there at that time. Anytime in your life, you can scan the entire spectrum of the Danielle universe.
Hmm. I'd have to say most recently.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's just it's because it's so new and it meant so much. So recently, my dad came out to it was a small event we had with my brand, my CBD company, Unoya, and you showed up and you surprised me, and because this is such a new space for me, but it also means so much to me, and I wasn't paying attention that there's much going on in the world, right? Like I'm not expecting anybody outside their comfort level to do anything, but it was really cool to see you there. I was like, wow. And then it also, we were talking about how that made what I was doing felt more real to you, and it also made it feel very real to me. Because it was like, yeah, like I mean, because it was like almost I looked at it through fresh eyes. I was like, yeah, I guess this is kind of cool. Like, I mean, I've been doing this, but it's like, so I know that's a big deal. That was a big deal for me recently, and then I would say like graduations. Things I'm really proud of because we worked so hard, those milestone things. And um, and I would say also just in a small way, when I call being somewhat available in those moments of excitement or, whatever, those are like the coolest moments because I'm like, ah,
Because it
dad.
was something you wanted to tell me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think those are like some really cool moments as well, where you know I just feel like we're on the same page. It's like, okay, let me keep
Well,
up.
that event that you're talking about is actually the one that picture that's from this,
Hmm.
that's promoting this
Yeah,
particular episode, actually comes from that.
yeah.
So, and we have this thing where Danielle and I have, well, that was a close one. is one of
Mhm.
our lines. And when we say that was a close one, it usually means it was a tear up moment.
Right.
Absolutely.
Oh, whoo, player. That's what we say.
And
As a
yes, yes,
person.
absolutely. Yes, there's some dabbing that goes on.
Right.
And that moment that was what, just a few days ago, actually, was
Yeah.
was a close one for both of us. I mean,
Mhm.
I didn't tell you I
It
was coming.
wasn't close for me. It's so interesting because I did not even know that that's what I wanted or
Mm,
even needed to some degree until I saw you there. Like I had no clue. Like it wouldn't have been like that. I mean, how could you not? Like I wouldn't even have gone to that, you know. But it was like in that moment, I was like, oh, I'm so glad you're here, you know. And that was really cool for me to to be surprised by that level of emotion. I was like, okay,
yeah,
clearly
you
I still
you
care
teared
if
up
my
a little
dad
bit
comes.
there.
And you know what too is I used to have all these basketball games that you could attend and you know cheer me on to, and life is not like that. After being an athlete, there's not games. There's not all right. You're going into the office defense. You know what I mean? Like it's that's not how it works. So I think in that respect, that it reminded me what that level of support was. Um, being at the gym or having a basketball game. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. It was really cool because I feel surrounded not just by you in those moments, but by our family.
Mhm.
Here and not here. It's just as a cool presence.
Well, this is not just a one-way street either.
Mhm.
So for us, in terms of being present, uh, because there have been moments, even, I mean, years and years and years ago, where it was important for both of us. Because I was trying to remember, because I knew I was going to ask you this question, but I was like, I better be prepared to answer it because I'm not sure. So there's two things that came to mind that kind of jumped in my head. One was, and it was, uh, we had just started kind of going back to church pretty regularly. This was at Cascade United Methodist Church in Atlanta, in Southwest Atlanta. And um, it was one of those things where, toward the end of the service, where they say, does anyone want to join the church? And I had joined that church much earlier in life with my parents, but I think it was they had said that something like Walter Kimbrough was the senior pastor, and he said something like, you know, you can join the church, but sometimes we need to join it again because maybe you've drifted from it or something. And we were sitting there just in the thing, and I just said, you know what, maybe I think that's something I want to do. So I just jumped up and went to the front, and within seconds I felt somebody on my hand, and it was Danielle. And Danielle, because I jumped up, she jumped up, grabbed my hand, and went up to the front of the church with me. Not to join the church necessarily, but she felt and knew in that moment how emotional it was for me. So she got up, grabbed my hand, and then kind of put her arm in my arm while we're in front of the entire church, because that's being present too. There wasn't, I didn't ask you to, that wasn't an expectation. Um, but it was a really big deal. And so I think when these things, when we talk about being present, it's not just about dads being present, but it's also about, setting a model and an example of what that looks like for your child as well, that they know to be present for you also, or know that they can be. The other one was when uh, Papa, my dad, that's what all the grandkids call him, when his sister, my Aunt Lorraine, died, and they had her funeral in Shreveport, Louisiana. And so it was a flight to Shreveport. And for some reason, there was something going on with everybody. And somehow you found out that I was going to Shreveport. And you said, well, when are you going? And I told you when I was going. And I don't know whether you asked me whether I was going alone or whether you just kind of sensed it or something, because we didn't really talk about it that way. You said, "Oh, I want to go." And I was like, "Look at this girl."
Like,
So so I don't even know if you remember that, but I just remember how cool it was that you wanted to be there, and you've always done that. Be there in those moments that are important, that are sometimes that are stressful, sometimes they're gleeful, um, but it's I think that is something that we teach each other how to do over time. I think parents teach that to their kids, and I hope kids, I would assume kids, mine did, picked up the importance of being able to do that and reciprocate. Because there were a lot of other things you could have done a lot cooler that weekend than go to a funeral with me to Shreveport, Louisiana. But it was important for you to make sure that I knew. And by the way, I mean, my parents went, so it wasn't like I was the only one that went.
right.
That's not the point. It wasn't that I
Mhm.
was alone, because I wasn't, but it was about you wanting to be there with your arm, usually as it goes, with your arm in my arm, which is how our thing
Mhm.
normally goes, to be there, and
Mhm.
how important um, and powerful that was for me too. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and too, I think that I think that that's how it should be with the circle of parenthood and family and community is you do unto others as you want to do unto you. So it's like I was taught what that kind of support looks like. So it's very natural for me to want to do it for my friends and family that I feel that connection that that there's a community there, and I think that by teaching children that, by doing, then I'm gonna do. I don't think I could have put into words what I was doing. I was just
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna go with you. And that's really, and honestly, I don't remember thinking that much very deeply about it at all. Like it was like,
Right.
okay, do you want me to go? Like it was kind of like, no, we're a team. Do you need a teammate? I got you. And I think that I think, and that as I got older too, is being more aware of what's going around me. I think as a kid, you just like, hey, what can you do for me, brother? That's all I need. But I think it's somewhere along the way, you understand how to kind of do those things. So thank you for teaching me, and then I
So
was able to do it.
well, and thank you. So here's
Mhm.
here's a curveball, because I
Okay.
really want to hear your answers on a lot of these things.
Uh-oh.
Um, is the Was there a time where, at least in the moment, you might think about it differently now, but was
Mhm.
there ever a time where I was present that you went, "Oh my God, my dad is here"? Like, yikes! Like,
Yikes.
where my presence was like, I mean, cordially appreciated, but not.
Right, right. I'm really trying to think because I definitely want to be transparent. I'm just trying to think because the first thought was that the place that we talked about before, the OPI, whatever that was,
Oh
that
yeah,
meeting, that
yes,
was definitely probably. And I think from that experience, I don't know if we've had too many because clearly we've learned what we did not want in that scenario. And
right,
luckily, I was able to communicate that.
yeah.
That I think that was the only. Well, I'm trying to think what else. I mean, other than that, it was probably just people that I dated that I was just like, I like, but that's not like you supporting something else. It's more of like, trying to meet somebody. But I can't. I don't think that there was too many. I think that sometimes I was, and this is super weird to say. I'm gonna
Okay,
put that out there.
all right.
But it's almost like sometimes I was embarrassed that you were always there
Hmm.
because there were so many kids that did not have that. And it was like this weird, like, feeling that I
Like you
didn't
were
deserve
rubbing
it.
their noses in it, kind of almost.
Yeah, yeah. And like, it was just weird. It was weird for me. So Um, but also I was very grateful because, I was always told like, "Wow, your dad always comes. Your dad always," like, I was like, "Yeah," like, and so it would make me feel guilty, more
Mm,
than anything. Is like I feel guilty that my dad is always here. Just because there was other people that were having that and they never had a parent come. And
mm.
look at me having my father there all the time. And it was, and it's so weird. It's so weird to even think that there's another side to that, which was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, like, yeah, my dad's always here. Everybody knows. And then people make assumptions about your life and about, um, your lack of hard work. It's a really like interesting way our community tends to look at when you do have a good upbringing. What does that mean too? And you can get picked on for that
What's
as
the
well.
catch? Right.
Yeah,
Almost like what's
yeah,
the catch for it?
yeah. It's all. I mean, and there's always one. Is what I've learned.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yep.
yeah.
And
So I
you've had
think
at
that
least
that's
one
it.
at every level, and they haven't always been, um, they've not always been your age either.
Yeah. No.
It's happened where you've had people, that we
Grown
yeah,
people. Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Um,
And so that level of love that I get and I think that's in general in life. I feel like sometimes you can either inspire people or literally just make them really upset by you receiving that love or you having that light or whatever that is. So I'm like, well, I'll see you, whether I'll be able to know who you are as a person if we're inspired by each other, or the relationship with my dad inspires you or it makes you upset.
yep. Well, that's actually pretty powerful because
Yeah.
that lets you know a lot about what it is that you can expect
Yeah,
from this
look, and I'm
person.
like, I'm not, because then that means that you don't like to hear about happiness at all. And I mean, that there's just so many things that, and health. Some people are addicted to unhealthy,
To
thoughts
toxic.
and
Yep.
yeah, toxic, 100%. So, and people love an excuse of why they can't do something. So, and they'll be like, see, that's why you can do it because your dad was X, Y, Z.
Almost
You're
like there
right.
was some exception,
Yeah, for sure.
like
But I
like a
think, but I
cheat
think
for you. Yeah.
But I do think I came with a whole lot of benefits though. So I don't take away that part, but I also think that sometimes it can take away the people thinking that my own hard work did that. So, you know.
Well, so I want to talk a little bit about because there is that level trying to be present that much. Um, it does come with a cost.
Mhm.
So not an emotional cost, but it does come with. I mean, when you're if I'm there, I'm not someplace else. So,
Mhm.
uh, but this is one of the reasons you know entrepreneurship has become so important to me.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize it, I didn't really understand it, the importance of it so much when you were really little because,
Mhm.
it wasn't as big a thing. But I remember thinking, I'm going to have to be an entrepreneur
Mhm.
because I could not imagine me being in a situation where I have to ask someone whether I could have a day off to see Danielle's basketball game in the afternoon
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
anyone having any sway over that answer whatsoever.
Right.
Because I envisioned myself losing job after job
Right.
after
This
job.
is gonna work.
Yes, because that was non-negotiable for me.
Mhm.
I mean, now
Mhm.
as you got older, there may have been some times that were a little different, but even this shirt. So you and I have talked about this shirt. So
Mhm.
Danielle played basketball at Jacksonville University, D1 school, all that.
Mhm.
And I I don't know. Do you remember how many games a year usually you guys had if you included like conference games?
Uh, like 30,
Yeah.
32,
So
something like that.
so it was about 30 games probably a year.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you were played there 4 years. So I have here in my home I think 105 or 106 ticket stubs. And
That's
so,
impressive. That is
well, I
impressive.
didn't realize it until I was starting, we were starting and we were leading up to this. And I was like, let me see. In fact, I actually have this now, this vision of using these ticket stubs and
Oh,
creating some
yeah,
kind of
we
art
gotta
out
do
of it.
something with it. We have
Yes.
to. Yeah, I know
Um,
too much now.
but yes, right now we have to do it. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
yeah.
But it was, you know, and by the way, everybody should know Danielle's dad does not like to drive. So if it's 3+ hours on the road, if I'm riding with somebody, I might be okay. If I'm driving, my attitude
Maybe.
gets
I don't
bent
even
like
know that.
right
I
on
don't even know
3.5 hours.
that.
Yes, yes. I will take 4 flights before I drive 4 hours. Um, so typically, this is in Jacksonville. Yeah, this is in Jacksonville. So I knew I
Oof.
knew Delta's full schedule for flights on Saturday mornings. I knew exactly what time they would get and land in Jacksonville. I knew
Mhm,
exactly uh, I what hotels were the best ones. In fact, the ones I always stayed in was the one that we stayed in when we went and visited. It was a Hampton
mhm,
Inn in Jacksonville.
mhm, mhm.
We even had your graduation party, I think, at that very same hotel, if I remember.
Yep, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Um, but those are flights. They were not
Mhm.
free. A lot of them, thank goodness. People used to ask me, "What do you do with all your frequent flyer miles?" That's what I did with most of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But whether it was Tennessee or Texas or
Mhm. New
um,
York.
New York, we went
Mhm.
to you were in a tournament, or I don't know if it was a tournament, but played a team.
Yeah, it was like a series of games that, like it was kind of like a deal. You go up to Buffalo, New York, and
Yeah,
and we went up to
we went
yeah,
to
it was
Niagara
Buffalo,
Falls up there. It was right
Niagara
near
Falls.
Niagara
Yeah.
Falls.
Mhm.
But all of that, there's hotel rooms, there's flights, and I'm mentioning it not because, as Les Brown would say, not to impress you, but to
Mhm.
impress upon you
Mhm.
that that was a significant investment in
Mhm.
terms of capital and money.
Yeah.
And it probably, if anyone looked back and just said, well, how much did all that cost? If you even ask that question, you're missing the point,
Yeah.
because how much it costs is not really the point. The point is that it was fun for me, not only for you to look up in the stands and see me there, but for your teammates too, because
Mhm.
we even had little rituals we would do when you guys were doing lineups. Where
Yeah.
I point at the
Yeah.
crowd. I'm thinking about BG now, who that was one of
Mhm.
her favorite things, is to point back into the
Yeah.
crowd,
Yeah.
whether it
Yeah.
was Swisher Gym or whether we were in
Mhm.
playing, in Miami or playing University of Miami or wherever it was. That you know you don't get a second pass at those kind of things.
Right.
And so um I did used to think I used to think, am I going to tune, am I not giving her space, you know I did, there were times where I did
Yeah.
that, and that's just college. If we
Yeah.
go all the way through back to when, soccer games and basketball games, and when you started
Right.
playing AAU, all
Right.
over the place there too.
Yeah.
There were times where I would think, am I here too much?
Mhm. Mhm.
Do I need to just kind of pull up a little bit?
Right.
And every one of those thoughts lasted about 5 seconds,
Mhm.
because the next thought was, no, because I don't get another shot at this.
Right.
And um, so it, it does cost. It
Mhm.
does cost in terms of time off the clock. It costs in terms of vacation time. It may be leave without pay. It could
Mhm.
cost. All of these things are true.
Mhm.
Um, but our journey, I think, to some degree, was secured by those kind of sacrifices.
Yeah.
And so let me pivot to something else. So
Right.
presence. We're talking about presence and the power of presence. Um, but I have to tell you, one of the things, and this is one of the things that was actually in the book, that
Mhm.
I want to kind of say to dads, parents, doesn't really matter because there's a lot of different people that might have been from a distance for a lot of different reasons. One of the things that I remember used to break my heart more than anything else was not really about us, but it would be when we maybe go to a park or something like that, just hanging out.
Mhm.
And I would see, you know, dads there with their kids. And I can't tell you this for certain, but most dads who are dads from a distance, you can kind of see, like, if a I can tell whether a dad is at the park with his kids because he's giving mom a break versus the dad's at the park with the kids because it's his weekend. I don't know
Mhm.
how I can tell you that,
Yeah.
but I can tell you that. There's
Mhm.
just and any dad that's watching this will tell you the same thing. There's just a different thing.
Mhm.
Um, but what would break my heart, honestly, and it would remind me sometimes, is having kids, a dad out there at the park with the kids, and the kids are on the swing set or they're going down the slide or whatever they're doing. And the entire time that's happening, the dad or the mom, in some cases, would just be on their phone.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the phone is a tricky thing nowadays because we
Yeah.
use it to capture memories. We use it for video, we use it for taking pictures, in ways that we could never do, years and years ago. But I always, because you could hear the kids saying what kids normally say, which is basically, look at me, daddy, daddy, as they're swinging back and forth. And the dad looking down at his phone and looking up at the kid as if the kid is the distraction to the phone versus the other way around. Um, Dads, parents, especially for the little ones, they remember that. And I'm saying it not because I know it, because I've not studied it empirically. I've not done any research on this and talked to tens of thousands of children who are at parks where dads had their phones out. That's not the thing. I can just tell you that I can remember seeing those kids when they were trying to get their dad's attention, and their dad was on the phone, and I can remember what their eyes looked like. And it was hurt. And they kept swinging because they were at the park. But after a while, they stopped calling for their dad to look. And I always remember thinking, I'm seeing this, I'm going, that is going to come up at some point in time. That's going to rear its head again. And these are kids that are 4, 5, 6 years old. And, you know, I was telling some friends of mine not long ago, Danielle, that pretty much all the things that you are figuring out, most of your relationship is figured out by the time you're 4, 5, 6 years old. The rest of it is evolving or kind of polishing. But you can't fix that when somebody's 14. It's too late to try to fix it then because they already have a template for how it works. And so being present that way, I mean, physically present, but being also present in the moment, I guess, is important.
And I would add to that because I am the age where a lot of my friends have kids. I would say
Hmm.
probably a lot of people that I graduated high school with, and we are uh, our generation has been faced with this phone, you
Hmm.
know, because it wasn't it wasn't that easy to get that distracted without this full on computer anywhere you want to go.
Right.
In a society that surrounds our whole life around it and about being fast and responding immediately and all those things, I find that my generation really has a hard time, and I think addicted to the phone and to being making sure that they know everything that's going on. And I think they want to try to focus on what everything is going on instead of even having any idea what's going on in their own life.
Right.
You don't even know how you feel.
Yeah.
Like
And
you don't
you're
even.
balancing it against what everybody else is putting out
Yeah,
there, which
exactly.
may
And
not
I
be really
mean,
what they feel.
it's so many clones. It's literally clones. but we don't have to be. And so, all that to say, I think that when people aren't, I really hope that, um, there's a place where obviously phones they have to come up, and kids have to do iPad, all those things. But I think that interaction is so important because, like you said, that I've seen it. Those things become abandonment issues,
Mm,
and scared of trying and being turned down. I mean, there's just so many ways that there's nothing on your phone that important for that long.
right.
I think that there may be some crazy things, but that would happen one time versus all the other times that you're present. There's nothing that important.
Wow.
I
Say it
mean,
again.
then where we are, because somebody said to me the other day, we did like this closed yoga practice. It was really, really cool. But she was like, the future is now. This is this is what you were talking about. What you're gonna do is actually now. The future is now. And I was like, yeah, there is no such thing as future. We are always living in the future.
Yep.
And I know that sounds like kind of like really
No,
whimsical and
no, it's
hippie, but it's true. And so I think that, if someone's like, yeah, I can't wait till I can do this with my kids, and I can't wait to do that, and I can't wait to be able to take them here and there. It's like, well, that's now.
right.
You can start being that person now. If you want to take them to Disney World, well, you can't do that right now. Okay, well, let's be present on the playground.
Right.
Let's enjoy this. And I think that by by us not being engaged with our kids, it's also teaching kids to be dependent on the same thing. You just making more and more clones. Um, because I think that's a part of my, at least I've taken on the mission and purpose of reminding, particularly my generation, because we have a lot of disconnect. There's so much connectivity, but disconnect.
Yeah.
But it's so cool to just be looking up, or just being present. And I think with kids, that goes even further. Again, I'm no parent. My best friend's a parent. She's like, sometimes I'm right there, but sometimes I'm like, well, that's fair because I don't know those. I can't
Yeah.
say. But what I can say is I think that there should be balance to it, where you can really be there for them.
Yeah,
Really.
and to be fair, this is not just something that would have plagued a generation that has so much electronics available. I mean,
Hmm.
if you look at a movie that was probably from the 60s or 70s, you will see the family sitting at the breakfast table
Hmm.
with the dad with the newspaper open,
Newspaper. Yep. Yep.
and it's the same thing.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's not literally the same thing, but you know what I'm talking
All
about.
right.
There,
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
a moment that is potentially being lost, and just to make this point, so Danielle and I have, uh, it's not a hard and fast rule because we've not said it to each other, but we like to go out to have lunch, and we have our favorite spot where we have lunch, and we both have phones, and you've got two businesses, I've got three businesses, and then we got the world and everything, but those phones sit on the table while we're having lunch. And if we pick them up, it's because I want Danielle to show me why I'm not able to respond to a message on Instagram. So she's teaching me something about the phone, but those phones sit down. They are not they are
Yeah.
not physically in our hands. In fact, if they're on the table, the only reason they're on the table is because we've told each other somebody might reach out to me,
Hmm.
and I want to make sure I catch it because we
Yeah.
know. But even then, it's announced that that's going to be
Hmm.
the thing.
Right. Right.
Um, and so, but you can go to the same restaurant. We've been in the same restaurant, and people can go to restaurants. How many times they've actually seen the art of conversation even struggling because there'll be 10 people at a table and eight of them will have out their phones. you know, at a meal. And I don't mean like at the end of the meal or just when the food's getting ready to come, but I mean the entire time. And so we are more connected, I guess, in some degree, to some degree, Danielle, because all of that allows us to be connected. But connected to what really is what the real question is. And are we connected to the most important thing? So yes, you're changing your venue. Wow, it is
Yeah, I was
beautiful.
just changing locations.
Yes,
Sorry.
it is gorgeous where you are.
Yeah, I'm not complaining whatsoever.
I wouldn't, because that would be upsetting to me personally if you were complaining. Um, so questions. So
Hmm.
last thing, because we started right around a quarter 15 minutes after the hour, so we're approaching that now. So we always want to try to, you know, address questions or comments that you and I have heard, you know, in the interim. Um, bef- as we roll into that with this power of presence thing, though, the thing that I think is really, really awesome is that your friends, your closest friends in high school are I'm friends with them on Facebook or Instagram. Um, your teammates from
Right.
college,
Hmm.
um, you know, we're connected through LinkedIn. I still to this day, and I mean, and you're grown women now. Your
Right.
your coaches,
Yeah.
I'm connected. We're still connected to all of them, you know, at every single level. And you know, that's earned because
Hmm.
besides seeing you when I was visiting, whether it was a game or whatever, especially as you got older, one of the most wonderful things that could happen was a byproduct that I didn't really anticipate, but it was fantastic. So if something happened that for some reason I missed a game,
Hmm.
um, I can remember in high school there was a game that you actually won the game at the free throw line playing read in. It was a home game, and uh, basically you were at the free throw line, and the points, your shots, basically won the game at the end of the game. And apparently you hit the first shot, and that people were yelling and screaming or something, and you looked to the crowd and you did this while you were taking your shot. So the question is, how do I know all of that? I know all of that because I wasn't there, because all these people know that I'm normally there. I was getting text messages and people were calling me and telling me about it before you were even off the court, because they didn't want me to miss that moment, because they know how important my being there is to me, that they actually were telling me the details of this before the game was even over. I was getting text messages. Danielle's on the free throw line. She just hit one. It was like a play by play. Um, because we were saying this a minute ago. I think when that's how people know you, they will protect those spaces that you're not present in, and they will preserve them for you. Nothing like when you were in college. If I missed a game for some reason, that didn't happen very often, but if I missed a game for some reason, and having, you know, um, VG um, or uh, Roe or Ashley or, you know, that whole Davina, that entire group, and the first thing they said was, "We missed you, Mr. Gray." You know that your presence is not just for your kids, it's
Yeah.
for everyone. And man,
Yeah.
let me tell you something. As That was sweetness on top of sweetness. And to this day, they are, if I see any of them, we still communicate. I mean, usually electronically or digitally, but they're all my kids too, because they also knew that they were your sisters. And so it
And
was
they
just a
felt
very
like
cool.
that. They felt that love from you, and I think that they felt. my openness of sharing that as well,
Yeah.
because I've always picked up on it. I think that we all have a purpose, and I think a part of this journey for you is really about fatherhood.
Yeah.
It's so, like, you know, I love this podcast. I love what we're doing. I love how this is going, and I think that it's a way for both of us to support each other, Um
Hmm.
so anyway, kind of went on a tangent a bit, but yeah.
Well, that's what we do.
Right. That's fair. So fair. So
That
fair.
is literally what we do. We
Yeah, and
in
I'm
our
like, well,
conversations.
and we've learned to say, okay, I'm not going to be talking about anything that's even remotely close to what we were just talking about. So the
Correct, correct.
right,
Changing lanes. I'm about to
right,
change
right,
lanes.
right. We could change on back. We could change on back.
Yes, yes.
Mhm,
So one of the questions we'll do another 7 or 8 minutes because we want to try to keep it at an hour, and we know we've
mhm,
pushed people a little bit beyond our normal time.
mhm.
Um, is are there times, and we discussed it a little bit, but are there times where your being present is uncomfortable, like, and not for you so much, but for me, like, uh, because your mom's very involved in your life too. So, and your grandfather was right there, and your aunts were there. In fact, living there, multiple aunts being in the city at the same time. And so, and this is not just with school, this would be with like AAU tournaments or traveling or all that kind of stuff. So, and the question I get a lot, and we've addressed it a couple of times, is like, is it ever awkward for you to be there and have the other family there, or the other side of your family there?
Always, it's always awkward.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. So, and
yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because I think the answer people think I'm going to
You're like,
give is,
oh
oh,
no,
absolutely not.
no.
Oh, yeah. It's and the earlier, the younger you were, the more awkward it was because
Hmm.
it was still pressure and it was all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah,
kind of depends. I don't know if it gets less awkward. Honestly,
no.
I think that as you get older, you start picking up on things too. So it's
Hmm.
just like, okay, my brain is kind of like, it can be a little
Oh
bit
my God.
older, but I think that,
You're dropping nuggets. I
yeah,
lost some of your audio, so you have to say that again. Whatever it was, you have to say it again.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
What should I just um I don't remember now. I don't
Awkward.
remember. It
Yes.
was
So
okay.
technology is just kind of slapping
I
us
know.
around here,
Is
but
it? Can you hear me now? Pretty good.
yes, yes,
Okay,
you're
of
fine.
course. It was a time when I was in a really good flow, and I just anyway, it's cool. Um, but no, about the awkwardness. I think that that's what I was saying was that the older you get, you pick up on certain characteristics, you pick up on tones of voice, you've experienced life a little bit more. So sometimes it can sometimes even be more awkward if you're older versus when you're younger because you pick up on more of the storyline. You're
Mhm.
like, oh, okay. Before it's just like, I don't want, and
Yeah.
then it just gets more detailed. But I think it's kind of for me, I I am not really awkward. One, because it's not something that happens a lot, but it's kind of just the acceptance it being what it is. It's like, I
Right.
mean, look, we're all attached to each other, so
Yep. And and it's funny that because I don't know that it's a bad thing, because
mm-mm,
I think, because I it's really interesting because there are times where I know people that, because they know that, and this, by the way, is not just Danielle's mom and me, it's Danielle's family, it's
mhm,
me, it's Melody, our whole family. So
Mhm.
there's a
Mhm.
lot of stuff going on in the same space. But I think if you're thinking about it in terms of, well, let me see where they're sitting. Are they sitting over there? How close do I sit to them? Do I sit close enough to them where I actually have to talk to them? Or do I sit
Mhm.
over here where, okay, so I'm working the concession stand. When is she working the concession stand? I don't want to work because the concession
Right.
stands you're doing too much if all that's going on.
Right.
Um, because that, and we've said this in previous um, broadcasts, and
Mhm.
that if you're doing all that, it's about you.
Right.
It's
Right.
not about your child. So if
Right.
you're starting to really twist yourself into pretzel like knots around, you know, after the game, what if everybody, so it's a Saturday game. So we finish
Take
at
a
the
deep breath.
afternoon. Yes. Who are we going to go to lunch? Who's going to lunch? Are you going to ask her to go to lunch, or do we all go to lunch? No, I don't want to get in all of that kind of stuff. Um, is it uncomfortable sometimes? Sure. Is it
Yeah.
awkward? Sure. But honestly, what about being a parent is not awkward a lot? You know,
Mhm.
it doesn't come with a playbook. It does not come with an instruction manual. Uh, that the one of the things that I think and is a really big challenge, more of a challenge even now than maybe 15 or 20 years ago, is, and you talked about this a little bit when you were talking about social media, basically, is that, um, and you and I tend to be probably a little more brutally honest in our social media than we probably catch people off guard from time to time, which
Mhm.
is good.
Mhm.
But that, and I heard the term that a lot of people curate their social media.
Mhm.
So they put something up that's not real, but they put something up that they want the world to feel is real.
Mhm.
And um, and maybe even aspirational. I mean, I'm not judging it, but I just
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because I know some people and I know their actual lives,
Right.
and then I see their social media lives, and I'm like,
Right.
dude,
Right.
you are lying. That's not how you feel about that. That's what you just told me yesterday.
Right.
You hate that.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but I think the
Right.
the dangerous part about that is that we don't necessarily see people's lives as they are. We see, kind of this curated, um, created, manufactured, constructed type of image. And then we start, if we're not careful, we'll start balancing our lives against what we see, um, which is dangerous
That's
because
impossible.
it's right.
Yeah,
Because
I
it's
mean, that's
not,
not judging you, so it's not real. It's not even
no,
real. I think there's a difference between being private and being, you know, just telling too much or just
yeah,
lying outright. If
yeah,
like
yeah.
I think that there's no need if you don't feel that way,
Well, I lost your
I do
audio.
think people are judging themselves with that. How
Yes. No, I could probably fill in the blanks. It is, the thing
Mhm.
is, the big picture is, um, you know, people who are messy before social media are messy with social media. So social media doesn't make people messy. It
Right.
puts it on display. If
Right.
people are, if they're fake before social media, they're fake
Right.
now. Now, I
Mhm.
know this because I know a lot of my generation prior to and now existing.
Like,
Um,
oh, same, same.
yes, but but around, but I think there's also some beautiful pieces to it. Like
Mhm.
sometimes I just like seeing a picture of a baby or of a kid trying to walk for the first time. Those are
Mhm.
wonderful things because
Mhm.
those are the kind of things that parents understand and we see and we take joy in. Um, but I wish sometimes, and not wishing is for fools, I know, but what I hope for is that people feel just as comfortable saying, I really screwed up yesterday, and
Mhm.
their social media. I hurt someone's feelings yesterday because I said something that was completely, totally, and stupid and wrong. and I need to apologize. And I'm going to apologize. Not necessarily even apologize to them in social media or even
Mhm.
say who it was.
Mhm.
But I think we are so protective of our images or what we perceive our images to be that sometimes that false narrative will kind of backflow back into our actual lives.
Mhm.
And then we start trying to make our lives be what it is that we put out there versus
Right.
the other way around. And in this journey, especially
Mhm.
this journey where it is so complex and it has so many different moving pieces, and you figure it out at one level, and then you have a child of a different age that sees things through a different lens, so you have to learn it again differently.
Mhm.
And then there's another level, and we'll talk about dating and all that other kind of stuff because that's a
Mhm.
whole
Yeah.
different thing.
Mhm.
But it's messy sometimes because life is messy.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
not clean and pristine and easy. And I do these morning videos. You've seen me do these morning videos sometimes, and every once in a while I'll do something and I find myself getting emotional about it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, do I cut the video off now, or do I just let it play?
Mhm.
And what I find, and this is in my heart of hearts, I believe this, is that people are so relieved and so appreciative to actually
Mhm.
see the real thing happening in
Mhm.
the moment.
Mhm.
If you're talking and your throat starts hurting because what you're saying is emotional and you're on a live video and you just say it anyway,
Mhm.
that breathes life into other people's lives because they can see that and they're like, I totally get that, which is why we're
Yeah.
doing this, quite frankly.
Mhm.
Because there's
Yeah,
no
I
magic
think
wands in this. It's, we have and continue to put in the work, but
Mhm.
it's awkward for us from time to time. When we do, I don't know when we're going to do our dating
Mhm.
broadcast,
Mhm.
but man, that has
Mhm.
gone from, I mean, that has gone around the
Yeah.
world 10 different times and reversed and
Mhm.
gone back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but you're supposed to, we're not perfect in this.
Mhm.
None of us are. But what we can be is, and what I think both of us are hoping that people will grab from these broadcasts is, you know, fall down 7 times, get up 8.
Mhm.
That's sometimes that's as good as the day gets. But that's a pretty good day. And if you don't believe that your 5-year-old kid 26 years later doesn't understand all of those things, Danielle is proof positive that that's how that works.
Mhm.
So, is the journey wild sometimes? Yes. Is it fun sometimes? Yes. Does it make you cry sometimes? Yes. Um, but I, as journeys go, this is a pretty sweet journey,
Mhm.
and it will continue. Uh, it's actually happening. You're witnessing it live. So you look at
Mhm.
the expression on Danielle's face right now, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
That um, this journey is important
Mhm.
and you cannot shortcut it. There are no workarounds. Sometimes you just have to walk through the puddle. And but you do it because on the other side, that's where the good, I mean, that's where you sit and
Mhm.
grin all by yourself in a house and no one else is even looking, and you just go, I have a really cool relationship with my daughter.
Mhm.
And I don't say it so that anyone can hear it. I just say it because that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, transparency is what we're all about here.
Mhm.
We're trying to keep it real. We don't ever know where these conversations are going.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm wondering whether people are watching this and they're going, I don't really get any of what they're saying. Right?
Yeah, that's not for them. I think what I'll kind of finish up and add to that is that I think vulnerability is is a superpower. And I think it takes courage to be vulnerable. I think that I am a private person, so there's certain things that I don't disclose all the good news either,
Mm,
quite frankly. So I think that there's things that, we can share. I'm very thoughtful about and intentional about what I share with the world, just because there's a sweet spot that, um, it's only mine. But I do think that if something's happening in real life, I don't. I remember Brene Brown said, "Don't puff up and don't shrink."
mm,
And so that's why I try to just go into the rooms of, even when I'm feeling vulnerable or when I'm feeling uncomfortable, try not to puff up because that's where we tend to go. At least that's where I'm trying to protect myself, but also don't shrink and belittle yourself either. So trying to walk in that middle ground is, I think, the best part, which is being honest, and sharing what the heck you want to share, and being thoughtful about what all that looks like. So,
well,
and I'll say too, and add
mhm.
add on to that, knowing that nobody's journey is perfect. Because sometimes if we just have that belief, I'm looking through social media, I'm like, I know that ain't, like, and but sometimes people really look at these couples or look at these people and think they have perfect lives, and I think that's where the toxic part is believing that image. If we all just understood that that's not really the case, everybody can put their highlight reels on, and that's all good. Share what you want to. So yeah, this was awesome.
Well, I just I just feel really cool about the fact that I know you don't put everything out there in the
Hmm.
world, because I
Hmm.
think you're right about that. There's a line from the poem If that says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those imposters just the same,
Hmm.
um, that you just live life. I
Yeah.
also like the fact that I bet I know a little bit more than the whole world knows about
Yeah.
Danielle.
Yeah. That's
That
cool,
I think
right?
is very
Yeah.
cool. That is very cool. So be
Yeah.
present, folks. Not just physically present, but be present um, in the moment, because
Hmm.
it matters,
Yeah.
and your child will remember that forever. My kid does, uh, and if she does, yours does too. So thank you, Danielle from
Thank
California. I don't
you.
know where you're going to be next time we do one of these. Um,
I don't know. I don't know. Just living my life, being present. You know what I
there
mean?
you go. There you go. All right. Love you,
All
Danny.
right. Love you too, Daddy. Yeah.
All
Thanks
right. We'll see.
everybody for joining.
Yep. And we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
All
Bye.
right, bye.